We're proud to announce CISO Stories, a new podcast series in partnership with Cybersecurity Collaborative and Cyber Reason. CISO Stories features the candid perspectives and experiences of frontline senior security executives and dives deep into timely security topics. CISO Stories is hosted by Todd Fitzgerald, VP of Cybersecurity Strategy at Cybersecurity Collaborative, and Sam Curry, Chief Product and Security Officer at Cyber Reason. Listen weekly as they speak with extraordinary CISOs by visiting securityweekly.com/CSP.
Welcome back to Business Security Weekly. I am your host, Matt Alderman, joined by Paul Asadorian and Jason Albuquerque. Do you have a specific guest or topic that you want us to cover on one of the shows? Submit your suggestions for guests by visiting securityweekly.com/guests and completing the form. We will review those suggestions monthly and reach back out to you once you've been approved. Also, our next live webcast will be on April 29th at 11 a.m. Eastern, where you will learn how to prepare for modern ransomware attacks. Visit securityweekly.com/webcast to register now. If you missed any of our previously recorded webcasts or technical trainings, they are available for your viewing pleasure at securityweekly.com/on-demand. All right.
You almost said 11 p.m., didn't you?
Yeah.
Because I do that all the time. What is it about? I don't know what it is. I do that all the time. I'm like 11 p.m. No, not 11 p.m.
Nope.
a.m.
11 a.m.
I don't know why that is.
And it says a.m. right there.
I know, it's weird.
My brain, it's still getting back.
My brain does the same thing. It's very strange.
All right, articles for the week. The first one is how I thought this was an interesting article, Jason. I brought this one in, how to create a winning post-pandemic business model. And it's geared more to the CEO and to the business leaders, but I thought it was an interesting read for security professionals. Yeah.
You know, because at the end of the day, if you weren't prepping for that level of disruption that's happened over the course of the last year, your business is going to start doing it anyway, right? It's going to happen. We're in a place where, at least I've seen in many instances, some businesses weren't built for kind of this new age of doing business and new age of transaction. But the ones that were kind of kicked back on their heels and realized, wait a minute, we need to change our business model, they are starting to innovate fast. As soon as they figured out that, wait a minute, we got a little bit of cash flow here, right? We've been tightening the belt a little bit over the course of the last year. Now we got some cash flow. Guess what? We need to invest now. We need to invest in transforming the business, optimizing the processes, right? Streamlining our business, getting economies of scale. So it's starting to kick in fast right now.
Yeah, and I think the 2 points here that I want the CISOs to understand, the security community as a whole, in order to enable these new business models, there's kind of two components. You either have to increase customer value. So what is the value of security to the customer value? Or you have to lower your cost to serve your customer, or do both.
Or you're doing both. The most successful businesses will be doing both.
Exactly.
Because in all honesty, they're going to figure out, how do I bring value to the customer faster and more efficiently? But the law of unintended consequences, it's going to lower the cost, right, of operating. You're going to see those operational efficiencies, especially if they're leveraging technology, which they're going to have to. In order to compete, they're going to have to leverage technology no matter what business you're in these days.
And it's that leveraging of new technology that always should hold the promise of reducing your costs and making you more efficient, right? Those are the ones you want to go after. Now, sometimes I feel like there's a curve that you underestimate, that there's a time to ramp up, train, learn, and implement. So you're going to incur some more costs during that kind of ramp up curve, but upfront, right? But your long-term cost is where you should start seeing your return on investment. And I think the pandemic certainly brought about, okay, how do we get to this new technology so we can do business more efficiently, make more money, but also kind of weather that storm of, we might be tightening our belts, but we got to invest in this new technology. So we're going to spend some money. Security is going to cost money, and not direct costs, but I have been focused on the indirect costs.
Sure.
Because the technology is only, I don't know if we covered it on this show, but like the technology is only as good as much you train your people on it. And so now I find myself asking, as we're doing this at CRA, right? We're looking at our technology and using, Matt knows, right? Shifting our technologies around. Meeting this morning, right? That was part of the huge conversation. And I said, I think this is the right technology for a lot of reasons. I said, but one thing that really impressed me was I asked the team, like, how do you feel about this? Going back to one of our other segments, right? And I'm like, do you need or want more training on it?
Yeah.
And like across the board, they're like, it's so intuitive that I don't think we need a lot of training on it. I'm like, That's the right thing. Now we're going to be more secure, more efficient, and like I don't spend a whole bunch.
And the adoption rates are high.
Yes,
that's like, the key, right? I mean, there's so many organizations over the course of the time that I've worked with that literally come to a technology business partner that say, we've only adopted 20% of this technology.
Yep.
Right? We're not realizing the efficiencies that we could be pulling out of this.
You don't get your return on investment.
You don't get the return, right? And the total cost of ownership goes through the roof, right? Because you're paying all this money for all of this feature functionality, and you're using this little tiny bit of it.
There's a security equation in there too, because if your
time.
people aren't trained on it, are they using it properly? Or there's data leakage possibilities and things like that.
Absolutely.
Now, to tie it back to our previous section with Nemi and Extra Hop, right? He made an initial investment and got the technology to scale. See, the investments you make have to give you scale long term, because that's how you keep your costs under control, right? And we've had those same conversations to the meeting we had on the exec call this morning that Paul was talking about, right? As a business, we've made certain investments. And what we're starting to realize is those investments are starting to give us scale on the other side, where you can see the growth in revenue without the growth in expense. And that's the way security leaders need to think. Make investments at scale so you can provide that value at a much lower cost point over time as those technologies scale.
Yeah. And
what's interesting, though, I'm sorry, is the cloud native decisions, too.
Yeah.
Those carry with it some more upfront development, but what's interesting, like not as much development as if you were to do it yourself, and sometimes implement in other products. And I'm kind of impressed and also a little scared about going down some of these paths, because that's a trickier waters to navigate. Like I'm putting some trust in the cloud provider, taking some relief on the development side, but I still have to develop my own stuff. I'm not just getting something off the shelf and customizing it. And then where does security fit in all? Then you get into how much security does Amazon own? Specifically with these services, and what do we own, and is everyone doing their due diligence, ourselves included?
Yeah, and a big part of that exercise is sitting back saying, all right, all of this feature functionality that I get out of this cloud platform, what would it take for me to build an equivalent? I mean, think about it, from high availability to resiliency to all of that stuff. It's like if I built it myself, I'd be maybe spending more money.
That's what
because I have to hire the bodies to do it all. I mean, so that's part of the exercise that you go through. But one of the things I pulled out of this article that really, for me, just kind of went ding, 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 is for the security professionals and security leaders out there, this business transformation is going to happen with or without you. Be part of it. Right? Embed yourself in the business and know what the business units are doing, build those relationships, and know what's happening. Because they're going to go out and say, wow, easy button, cloud tool, gets me efficiency for my business unit, boom, I'm buying it.
I think Matt and I probably both had the same reaction when we saw FTP up on a slide as a potential solution.
No. This next article, this was an interesting one. This one's out of the UK, right? This is the NCSC new boss in the UK saying, look, boards still aren't taking cybersecurity seriously, which opens up these organizations to ransomware attacks. I mean, we've seen a lot of progress in certain areas, but it looks like in the UK, maybe not as much board
maybe
adoption.
I'm not sure. I mean, I read this article and I kind of maybe not. Every organization is different at the end of the day, right? And some boards take it seriously. I honestly feel that the boards that take it seriously, number one, are knowledgeable and have maybe a CISO or a CEO who's knowledgeable in the cybersecurity space and is educating them. And the other fact is there may be some outside pressure, like regulation, to make them think about it, right? So that's
regulation. I think forces it into the business process, and I think my guess is that the companies and boards that are focused a little more on cybersecurity have their house in order in all the other areas. So if you're struggling with some of the business processes, it probably hasn't come up on the agenda that, like, by the way, we need to do all of this other stuff. And that could be where we're seeing some of the spectrum of some boards do have, like, all different levels, like hyper focus on cybersecurity or zero focus and everywhere in between. It's probably just like how well organized you are as a business and an organization.
And also knowing the landscape, right? I mean, it's one of those scenarios where there are certain verticals where if a breach does happen, that could be your business. Like, that is literally whether or not your business survives.
Well, I mean, that's all businesses at the end of the day, but more so for some, to your point, Jason,
exactly. Right? So that's why I'm saying the risk factor is higher from a brand perspective and consumers actually wanting to do business with them. That's why the conversation's happening at the board.
Yeah.
Yep. And that's why the next two articles are here, because the next one really is, how to be a business leader in the boardroom in what you need to do. And then the next one after that is a little bit around the regulatory side, right? Is what could we expect? The first one, though, is, obviously we've had this conversation multiple times, Jason, how to have an open conversation and be transparent with the board from a cybersecurity perspective to really provide value as a business leader to the board. Yeah.
And I think, the first one was open discourse and be transparent. I think the way to be successful is to have a culture where security is a shared responsibility across the entire organization. Right, because I look at it from my perspective, in the relationships that I've built within the business units at my business, is when there's an issue or a question or a challenge, it's never the security team, it's we. Right, so there's this level of ownership across the business for security.
Yeah. How do we do this? But how do we do this securely as well?
Yeah. So
that's building culture.
It's
hard to do.
It's really hard to do, and I think a lot of it is the relationship building side, right? And creating an environment where it's a shared responsibility. Where, let's say, I'm working with my services team, right? The services team understands that they have the institutional knowledge of that business unit, and they have to be having the right conversation because it's a whole, it's our business that benefits from it, right? It's not that department.
You realize as an organization, your customers expect a certain level of security.
It's a level of expectation. Yeah. It really is, right? So I think that was the beneficial piece where we can be transparent, right? Where we can go together to the CEO and say, here's the struggle we're having, right? It's not blame on the security team or blame on the IT team or blame on the services team. It's us going in collaboratively saying, we have a problem. We, the organization, has a problem that we need to solve.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, and the other two were kind of, have a narrative, but it's all about alignment of IT and business objectives, which we know, right? And then a little bit to the first article is you got to focus on the future. You got to be prepared for the changes that are coming to the business. Because if you're not, if we're always retrospect, we're never going to be ready for the business.
It's that scalability and flexibility, right? I mean, with my teams, I'm constantly saying things like, all right, we're going to build this architecture. Let's make sure it's future-proofed. That's kind of my lingo, future-proof.
My lingo is let's not take our foot off the gas. What we have,
there you go. Right?
It might work today, but if we take our foot off the gas, it's going to take us even longer to get back to speed and then go faster where we were before.
Right. Yeah. And that future-proof conversation just spins the team into another gear where they're starting to think 2, 3, 4 years down the line and saying, will this architecture withstand 4 years from now? Right. And thinking with that outcome in mind. So that's the conversation. That's kind of my buzzword that I use within the teams is it future-proofed? Show me. Let's talk about it.
I like it. Right. See, now we can swap terms. I can talk about future-proof. You can talk about not letting your foot off the gas.
That's right.
Now we get more acronyms.
Lead foot.
And then you'll be in traffic court like I was last Monday.
Oh, boy. Ruh-roh.
Pled the good drive,
Yeah, that's it.
You get the good driver. In Rhode Island, you have the good driver. Every 3 years, if you've been a good boy or girl or whatever gender that you identify with, if you've been a good person and you have a good driver's record, you get pulled over and you get a speeding ticket, you can go to traffic court, and it's just like a process thing.
And you only pay the court fee.
You pay the court fee. Doesn't go on your driver's record. But then you got to be good. Now I got to be good for another 3 years. 3 years.
And how would you know this, Paul?
Because for the second time in my 3 year, I did this 3 years ago. Yeah, I seem to be in a good cadence of every 3 years. Nice. I'm like, but my 3-year trip traffic court. I'll see you later.
It's been 3 years. I can be lead foot now.
There you go. Yeah, then I get pulled over again. Damn it.
The second article in this chain is on the regulatory side, and this is an article is, are we going to see some more regulations? We've talked about this, Jason, that there's certain things I'd like to see done at a national level to simplify things 100%. Around privacy specifically. This article talks about that a little bit in what we could potentially have. I think it's interesting, though. He talks about, too many organizations are implementing just enough measures to check the box, which is the thing we don't want them to do, but...
Yeah, no, it was interesting, and I can totally see kind of that crystal ball of hey, it's starting to come. Number one, there's been a financial investment, right? I mean, part of which I love how government works, right? The coronavirus package had a whole cybersecurity element to it, which, I mean, you call that pork, right? Within bills, they're putting all this other stuff in there, but hey, they're investing in the right spot in this instance, so I'm not going to complain too much.
You could almost make the case they're stimulating the economy by saying there's $2 billion in funding. towards the mitigation for the cybersecurity for CISA, basically, right? To improve the infrastructure of the government.
Right.
Those are going to go to likely independent other contractors outside of the government to help stimulate the economy. I mean,
we hope.
Interesting how the cybersecurity was that kind of segue to that. But I'm like,
we're investing, right? And the other piece of telemetry that I have is I sit on Congressman Langevin's advisory board. He's a Rhode Island congressman, and he actually chairs the Cybersecurity Committee in D.C. And, over the last administration, there wasn't a whole lot of action at the federal level. Obviously, he kept up. I mean, that's his passion, right? Congressman Langevin
did a good job. Let's say the previous administration. Research,
that's it, right?
My belief is did not do enough to push these cybersecurity initiatives. I find it interesting that CISO was something that did come out of the Trump administration. Biden is continuing that. I mean, he's basically putting $2 billion in funding that. I think we cybersecurity professionals want to see more focus on that as well.
Yeah, and that's
I'm sure Langevin is like, oh God, let's go.
Exactly.
Give me some more resources.
And you can kind of almost see that pressure release of the frustration over the last 4 years on the cybersecurity side. Just from the communications that are coming out now, it's almost like, all right, now we can kick it into fifth gear and let's go.
Right. I mean, so it's important for a lot,
good
not
telemetry.
Just the economics, and economy of our country. It's important for defending the nation against enemy nation states. So like on both of those fronts, we need to really focus more on cybersecurity. So this, I thought, was a good thing. Interesting how it would affect the C-level community, CISOs and such. Does this tie back, Matt, in your mind to advice or things to watch for if you're a CISO today?
Yeah, I think it's just it's kind of an early warning that says, look, we could see some more federal regulation, and that will put additional requirements on the C levels, both at the CEO board level, but also on the CISO. And this is kind of more like a heads up. We could see this coming and be ready for it, right?
Because I think
that
you're
was
seeing
the intent of the article.
Social media companies, and certainly I'm sure with SolarWinds and Microsoft, getting a lot more attention from the government to go like, what are you doing to regulate stuff like social media, which ties, I mean, the IRA is a whole business unit of Russia that is creating false social media information, right? So we have to deal with that issue. And we also have to deal with these supply chain attacks and other high profile attacks. And I hope that legislation that we get makes sense. That's the kind of the caveat that comes with regulation. Right. Is it going to really make sense and push the needle forward?
Yeah, I hope so, because here's the other piece of telemetry, right? Probably all of our listeners don't realize this, but our governor went to the Department of Commerce to lead the Department of Commerce.
Yes, Commerce.
Right.
Right.
And if you're watching if you're looking at any of her tweets or social media, she's having the conversation on cybersecurity at the Department of Commerce. So it's blending across all of the different departments within the federal government, which is great.
Yeah, definitely. This next article talks about the skills CISOs need to have in 2021. This is a weird article to read because it's kind of like a slideshow.
Oh yeah, slideshow.
It was kind of a interesting one. But I look, there's a couple points here, and I think most of the senior level executives that listen to this know that, look, soft skills, business skills are just as important than your technical skills, right? We talk about aligning to the business and working with the business leaders all the time. I think that's what this article is trying to get across is, look, you can be a great technologist, but that's not going to be enough to be a CISO.
No, and I think it's one of those scenarios where reading it, it's like it's okay to start pulling fingers away from the keyboard and hire a good technologist around you and become a leader, right? Become a business leader within the organization with the technical and cybersecurity chops, and then reinforce the technical talent. Bring that strong team around you, right? And it's okay to start to lift those fingers off the keyboard and become more of a business leader. And to do that, you have to be able to have that clear communication with the board, right? You have to have that ability to have cost-benefit analysis like we were just talking about, and just that level of business acumen.
We also need the new talent coming in with those technical chops as well,
absolutely, 100%.
In order to enable us to do that.
100%. You need to be able to fill those gaps that are happening as we become leaders.
Yep.
That's
a
the
big
last
deal.
article.
That's
Right.
You're right. It is, Matt. Yeah. Sorry, I jumped the gun, but it ties into
you're
this
right.
one.
It's a life cycle. We have to create an ecosystem where we have right. We have that feeder system of talent coming in to allow us to kind of lift up and elevate within the business
and manage it too. I mean, I really love the parallels to healthcare because I think the Gulas are really onto something with data care because it really is. There's been a lot of things that you could look at as de-incentivizing people from becoming doctors, but we don't want that to happen with the technical talent or continue to happen with the technical talent, like putting people off. Like we still need that influx of talent, and not just at the doctor level, but all levels within both healthcare and cybersecurity. I think there are a lot of good parallels there.
Before we get to the recruiting one, I had one other one inserted in here, the 5 insights for CIOs and CISOs. There's no surprises in here, Jason.
Right.
I mean, we've known this for a while.
Yeah.
It was interesting to see him pull the different data sources together, but we know, security's taken a front seat, right? It has much higher visibility. We know you have to align to the business. We know some of these things, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I didn't see anything new in here, though.
No, but it just reinforces it, right? I mean, having that conversation of we need a seat at the table and honestly fight for that seat at the table, right? We talk about it. Leadership is not a title, right? It's not a title. So if you have aspirations to be a CISO and your organization doesn't have a CISO, fight for that role, right? Show the value. Bring that business acumen upstream and show that you deserve that seat at the table. Yet we need to be closer to the business, to those operations.
Yeah, for sure. All right, Paul, now we get to recruiting, right? This is the 7 items to build your security A team, because if you as a CISO are taking on more of a business leadership role and you're communicating to the board, you got to go recruit that good technical talent. Where are you going to find it, knowing that we've been struggling with this for a decade or so now?
Yeah.
So, this list is some tips on, what you can do for that. And we've covered pieces of this before, by the way. I mean, I didn't see much new here either.
No, but we have to break beyond that traditional HR style hiring, that antiquated style of hiring. We really, really do. I mean, this is a large conversation because the pipeline is short, right? So what are we doing to reinforce that ecosystem? And we've had conversations around, let's figure out if we can, assess kids' aptitude in middle school. So that way we're grooming the IT and the cybersecurity talent that early on, because we need that pipeline. We need that pipeline of people. It's hard, right? A lot of organizations are at a point now where, because that pipeline is so small of being able to bring talent in, they're investing in training programs where they're trying to groom their own talent. They'll bring in third parties, they'll bring in whatever the case may be, and just take the technical talent and groom it to where they want it. I'm seeing that happen a lot.
Yeah, and it's not only as part of your recruiting process, it's also part of your retention process. So what was interesting here is that the training components not only tie into the recruiting side, which I think is like point number 3, it also ties into this whole concept of, selling your job in the ability to keep them trained, to keep them there. That's a retention issue because, look, if you're going to spend all this money to train people, to recruit them, you don't want them to leave. So how do you continue to train them to retain them?
Yeah. And I mean, the most successful programs I've seen, and I've modeled, have like career pathing, solid structured career pathing, right? So you may start an IT help desk, and depending on where you want your career path to be, you could become a developer and follow that career path. You could go cybersecurity and follow that career path. And that career pathing is what keeps people hooked, because you're investing back into those folks and you're helping them build a career.
I like the model of the technical school or trade school, but for cybersecurity.
It's a must.
And we interviewed Jarrett.
It's a must.
They wrote a book about what you need to know to be a SOC analyst. And what Jarrett said was, the way I got into it was I was in the military, and they have a military style boot camp where they get like 14 SAN certifications in the time span of a couple of months. To me, it's like a technical training school. And there's a lot of brilliant cybersecurity professionals that keep coming out of that program run by the Army. And we need more programs like that, for one thing.
We need that at the high school level. Because think about this. There's so many kids who aren't built for college. But if we can give them a path in high school where they can come out and actually get a job, right? Now you basically have two levels of pipeline. You have pipeline coming right out of high school and into the workforce, and then you have the college-bound pathway. Right? I mean, now we're building
different positions and different levels of skill and different skills we need in cybersecurity, and those two paths start to fill more of those gaps that we have. Because you may not need someone with a degree, but in some things you might want someone with a degree. And it just
depends on the role,
where your career path is and what role you want.
But now with that type of a model, we're setting kids up for success the second they graduate high school, and putting them into a career. And you never know; they may want to go back and go to college.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, and I think the challenge is we've lost a lot of our vocational and technical schools over the years because there's been this push to send all kids to college, and we made student loans highly available to put them into college, into programs they weren't quite sure what they were going to do, and they're graduating with debt.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Put them into massive debt, and now they're paying off student loans for 2 decades.
Yeah.
You know?
Right. And so we almost need if we can do something at the national level for cybersecurity, maybe we can also tie in the educational components to this and try to do something too, because I think part of this also has to come at a different level, because yes, schools locally can attempt to do this, but if the funding mechanisms aren't aligned to do this, Jason, we're never going to get there.
No, and I wonder what funding healthcare has gone through, because I mean, we all know folks that work in healthcare. Yeah. Maybe they went to a trade school more like to become a CNA.
Yeah, totally.
I see that a lot, right? Now there's other people that may do a 4-year degree and accomplish the same thing, and they wanted the 4-year degree, and that's cool too, right? It all depends on your career aspirations. Maybe you get the trade school thing, like you said, Jason, then you go back and you do your studies and you get that 4-year degree. Yeah. We need that kind of level of stuff in cybersecurity.
And that's what I advocate for, right? I mean, I'm connected to a lot of nonprofits here in the state, connected with quasi-government entities, and what I continuously advocate for, kind of like what we were talking about in the previous, shared responsibility, except this type of shared responsibility is between the public sector, K through 12, higher ed, and industry. We all need to get together, have a shared responsibility. Here's where industry benefits out of this relationship. Here's where K through 12 benefits out of this relationship. Here's where higher ed benefits. And we have to create this life cycle, this ecosystem, right? Where we're all benefiting from each other to be able to build up this.
And I like the mentorship too. One thing I said last week was, with respect to healthcare, we all know people, at least we know a lot of people, because my wife sees them, that they go through the healthcare thing and they're like, wow, that's not my thing.
Yeah.
Because you got to be in a room where someone's bone's sticking out, and my wife had to watch an autopsy. Like, do that early on, and if that's what if you can get through that, and that stuff doesn't bother you, then you can be in healthcare.
Go do you.
You're going to see some stuff in healthcare. But it's the same thing for cybersecurity. You know, if you got to sit behind a desk 8 hours a day, that's not everyone either. You know what I mean? And not to say that's every job in cybersecurity, but still, let them try it out at an early on in the process.
But IT and cyber has its own level of pressures.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Do you know what I'm saying? I mean, it has its own level of pressures that you need to be able to say, I'm built for this. Yeah. I'm built for this kind of pressure.
Because I don't know if I could sit through an autopsy.
No way.
Me, I don't know.
I'm good.
No, my wife used
probably not.
No, my wife tortured me when she was in nursing school. Oh no. Nope, not my thing at all.
Yep.
But again, shared responsibility. We all have to have skin in the game here to make it work. We have to.
Yeah. Yep. Gentlemen, always a pleasure. Thank you for joining me today. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. And we'll see you next week on Business Security Weekly.